The sound that pulls you from sleep is not the gentle chime of a smartphone or the slow fade-in of a digital alarm. It is the profound, echoing boom of a monastery bell, a sound that doesn't just reach your ears, but vibrates through the straw beneath you. This is your awakening in medieval England. The first shock is tactile. The memory foam mattress, the soft cotton sheets, all gone. You are lying on a coarse, scratchy sack stuffed with straw, a material that rustles with the unseen scuttling of its other inhabitants. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke, damp earth, and the distinct, pungent aroma of animals living close by. You reach instinctively for the nightstand, for your phone, for the button to start the coffee maker. But your hand meets cold, hard-packed earth. The coffee you need to function won't exist in Europe for another 4 centuries. This isn't a history lesson. This is a visceral sensory assault. The true kicker, the cold splash of reality, isn't the lack of caffeine. It's the dawning understanding that your survival today doesn't depend on making a meeting on time or finding a Wi-Fi signal. It depends solely on your ability to haul your modern body from that prickly bed and commit to a day of labor that would make your most intense gym session look like a gentle warm-up. From the moment the sun cracks the horizon to the moment it dips below it, your existence will be measured in physical exertion. The average medieval peasant lifted and carried the equivalent of over a ton of weight every single day just to perform the basic functions of maintaining a farm and home. This is a statistic you won't find in most textbooks, a silent testament to a world running on raw human power. Imagine your first task. Water. There is no tap, no filter pitcher in the fridge. Water is a heavy, precious commodity that must be won through effort. The village well is a journey away, and each wooden bucket you haul back weighs over 40 pounds. Your family needs a minimum of 6 of these trips just to get through the morning. That's a 1/4 ton of water carried before you even think about breakfast. This is your warm-up. The main event is the field. There are no tractors, no diesel engines to do the work for you. There is just you, the stubborn, unyielding earth, and if you are among the fortunate minority, a single ox. The plow you must push is not a lightweight modern implement. It is a brutal, hand-forged contraption of wood and iron weighing 75 pounds. For the next 12 hours, you will fight the soil, your muscles screaming, your back aflame, as you carve furrows into the land one agonizing step at a time. Your Peloton session, your weightlifting PR, suddenly feels like a distant, trivial memory from another life. This constant, brutal workload did not just build muscle, it sculpted the medieval body on a fundamental biological level. Bioarchaeologists, studying skeletal remains from village cemeteries, have found evidence that would humble modern athletes. The bone density in these medieval frames is extraordinary, a testament to a lifetime of bearing immense loads. More fascinating still is the consistent asymmetry found in their forearm bones, noticeably thicker and stronger on one side. This is the permanent skeletal signature of a childhood spent in repetitive, intense labor. Swinging scythes, wielding hammers, chopping wood. Their bodies were quite literally forged by their daily lives. This is the stark, physical reality of the world you have awoken in. Your survival here will not be a game. It will be a daily, grinding test of endurance against forces that have already shaped the very bones of the people around you. But here's where it gets truly interesting. Medieval men didn't just endure this constant physical strain. They adapted to it in ways we rarely see today. The skeletal remains of these men, unearthed by archaeologists, show a bone density that would put modern professional athletes to shame. Their bones were thicker, denser, and far more robust than ours. In fact, their forearm bones were consistently thicker on one side, an unmistakable signature of repetitive, intense physical labor from childhood. This wasn't a genetic fluke. It was a physical testament to a life lived in constant motion and struggle. You don't learn this in history classes out there, but this physical reality is a quiet, powerful indictment of our modern existence. Meanwhile, modern man is facing a quiet crisis of physical decline. Average testosterone levels have dropped by about 1% per year since 1980. The average hand grip strength, a key indicator of overall physical capability, has plummeted across generations. We have so thoroughly engineered physical challenge out of our lives that our bodies are literally becoming weaker with each passing generation. The medieval man didn't need a gym membership or a personalized training plan. His entire life was a brutal, all-encompassing package of resistance training, cardiovascular exercise, and functional fitness. Their tools were heavier, their clothes were heavier. Try wearing chainmail for a day. A single hauberk could weigh up to 30 pounds, and you'll understand. Even simple tasks like making bread required significant physical effort. A single session of threshing wheat, the act of separating the grain from the chaff, would constitute a full-body workout that would leave most CrossFit enthusiasts gasping for air. This wasn't just about survival. It was about a fundamental connection to their bodies and the world around them that we have completely lost. Their physical strength wasn't a hobby. It was an innate, lived-in part of who they were. Every muscle was a tool, every task was a repetition, and the landscape itself was their gym. We chase physical fitness as a separate activity, an hour at the gym after a day of sitting. But for them, it was the very fabric of their day, from the moment they rose with the sun until they fell into bed, exhausted but capable. Think your protein shake and meticulously planned meal prep routine are hardcore? Medieval nutrition would flip your modern diet on its head. Here's a reality check. The average medieval peasant consumed around 4,000 calories daily, but not from protein bars and supplement powders. We're talking about coarse bread so hard it could crack teeth, pottage, basically a perpetual stew of whatever was available, and a variety of whatever vegetables they could grow. The real kicker? They were arguably healthier than most of us. Despite having zero dental care, medieval teeth show significantly less decay than modern mouths. Why? The simple, elegant answer: no processed sugar. Their gut bacteria diversity would make our sanitized digestive systems blush. Modern food scientists are just now discovering that the fermented foods and varied unprocessed diet of the Middle Ages created a robust microbiome that protected them from numerous diseases we take for granted today. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Medieval men understood something we've completely forgotten. Food isn't supposed to be available 24/7. Their bodies adapted to natural cycles of feast and famine. During a successful harvest, they'd feast like kings. During the long, lean winter months, They might go days eating nothing but dried beans and hard bread. This natural intermittent fasting kept their metabolism sharp and their bodies lean. You don't learn this in history classes out there. Compare that to today, where we've got guys crushing their fourth delivery meal of the day while complaining about their gut health. The average modern man consumes more sugar in a week than a medieval person would see in a year. We've got more food variety than any medieval king could ever dream of, yet we're plagued with dietary diseases they never experienced. Want a medieval food hack that would shock modern nutritionists? They drank ale instead of water, not to get drunk, but because the fermentation process made it far safer than most water sources, which were often contaminated, kids included. And that ale had more nutrients, like B vitamins from the yeast, than most modern health drinks. This wasn't a choice for pleasure. It was a choice for survival, a choice that also fortified their bodies from the inside out. Let's talk about survival, and I don't mean your phone battery dying at 2%. Medieval survival was a daily practice, not a weekend hobby. Every medieval man was essentially a walking survival encyclopedia. They could read weather patterns better than our modern meteorologists just by looking at the sky and observing animal behavior. They could predict storms days in advance with shocking accuracy, a skill born of necessity and constant observation. You don't learn this in history classes out there, but this was a quiet form of technological mastery that our climate-controlled lives have rendered obsolete. Think about your morning routine. You check your weather app, set your smart thermostat, and order groceries online. A medieval man? He's already identified 5 edible plants on his way to work, noticed wolf tracks near the village, and adjusted his day's labor based on approaching weather. His survival database was stored in his head, not in the cloud. Here's something wild. Medieval people could navigate vast distances without a single map. They used a complex mental framework of landmarks, stars, and natural features. Some could travel hundreds of miles and return home using skills we've completely lost. Their brains actually developed different neural pathways for navigation than our GPS-dependent minds. You don't learn this in history classes out there, but this is a profound example of how our technology has not only supplemented but supplanted our innate human capabilities. But the real survival gap shows up in crisis situations. When disaster struck, be it a flood, famine, or invasion, medieval communities knew exactly what to do. Every person had practical skills that contributed to group survival. They could build emergency shelters from scratch, preserve food without electricity, and create basic tools from raw materials. Today, we've got survival shows on Netflix, but can't start a fire without a lighter. We've got emergency services on speed dial, but wouldn't know how to treat a basic wound without Google. The average medieval teenager knew more about practical survival than most modern survival course instructors. The kicker is how they viewed nature. We see it as something to conquer or avoid. They understood it as a complex system they were a part of. They could read animal behavior patterns, understand plant cycles, and work with natural rhythms in ways our modern minds can barely comprehend. Each season brought its own challenges and opportunities, and they knew them all by heart. Let's address the elephant in the room. Medieval people didn't have work-life balance because work wasn't separate from life. It was life. And here's the mind-blowing part. Archaeological evidence shows that medieval peasants typically worked fewer hours than modern Americans. But they never stopped being productive. Even their downtime was spent making tools, repairing clothes, or preparing for the next day. Forget about Monday blues or hump day. Medieval folk didn't even have weekends as we know them. But here's the twist. They had a completely different relationship with work. Every task had immediate, visible results. Plow a field, and you'd see the furrows. Build a wall, and it's right there, protecting your family. Their work had direct meaning, unlike pushing papers in a cubicle hoping for a quarterly bonus. As for mental toughness, they wrote the book on it. Imagine living in a world where every decision could mean life or death. No safety nets, no insurance policies, no government bailouts. A single bad harvest could mean starvation. Yet, medieval records show remarkably low rates of what we'd now call anxiety and depression. You don't learn this in history classes, but this is a profound truth about their mental fortitude. Today, we have meditation apps and stress management workshops. Medieval folks processed trauma and stress through community, physical work, and a deep understanding that life was inherently challenging. They didn't expect comfort. They expected struggle and were mentally equipped for it. Here's something that will make you think. Medieval people had a concept called productive suffering. They believed that facing hardship head-on made you stronger, wiser, and more capable. Compare that to our modern obsession with avoiding any form of discomfort. We've created a society where minor inconveniences are treated like major crises. But perhaps the biggest difference was their sense of purpose. Every medieval man knew exactly why he was working. To feed his family, protect his community, and leave something for the next generation. There was no existential crisis about career paths or finding your passion. Your work was your passion, because it kept you and your loved ones alive. Think you're tough because you powered through a cold to make a Zoom meeting? Medieval health challenges would like a word. Here's a shocker. Despite what you've heard about medieval filth, they actually had complex hygiene systems. Public bathhouses were common in towns, and most people washed daily, just differently than we do. They didn't have soap as we know it, but used plant-based cleaning agents and had strict protocols for cleanliness. The real kicker. Their immune systems were absolute fortresses. Constantly exposed to a variety of microbes from an early age, their bodies were finely tuned to fight off infections that would lay a modern person low. They weren't sanitized. They were hardened. Let's talk medical care. There was no WebMD, no urgent care clinics, not even a basic aspirin. Medieval folks had to be their own doctors most of the time. Every household knew dozens of medicinal herbs and their uses. That useless plant you're trying to kill in your backyard? A medieval person probably used it to treat 3 different ailments. Their medical knowledge was so sophisticated that modern pharmaceutical companies are still studying their herbal remedies and preparations. But here's where it gets truly wild. Medieval people had surgical procedures that would make modern doctors sweat. Skull trepanation, literally drilling holes in the skull to relieve pressure or treat certain conditions, had a surprisingly high survival rate. And get this, they performed cataract surgery using a needle to push the clouded lens aside, all without anesthesia. The bravery and grit required for such a procedure is almost incomprehensible to us today. You don't learn this in history classes out there. but these were the realities of their physical existence. A modern man catches a sniffle? It's time for Dayquil and a delivery app. A medieval man, he's crushing herbs, brewing remedies, and probably still heading out to work the fields. They didn't have the luxury of sick days. Their approach to pain and discomfort was radically different. They saw it as a natural, unavoidable part of life, not something to be eliminated at all costs. We've got guys popping pills for every minor ache, while medieval people were setting their own broken bones and cauterizing wounds with a hot iron. They weren't superhuman. They just understood that survival sometimes meant gritting your teeth and pushing through. They had a physical literacy that went far beyond what we know today, an intimate understanding of their own bodies and how to mend them with what the earth provided. Here's a reality check. In medieval times, being a warrior wasn't a video game class selection or a weekend hobby. It was a core life skill. By age 7, most boys were already learning weapon handling as a part of their daily life, not because they wanted to, but because their very survival depended on it. Archaeological evidence shows that the average medieval peasant had more practical combat training than many modern soldiers. The medieval world wasn't neatly divided into fighters and non-fighters. Every man was expected to be combat ready. Farmers practiced with spears and shields after working the fields. Craftsmen kept axes and hammers, tools that could double as formidable weapons, in their workshops. Merchants trained in self-defense to protect their goods on dangerous roads. A typical medieval man could switch from peaceful craftsman to the armed defender of his community in seconds. But here's what's fascinating. Medieval combat wasn't about showing off or proving something. It was ruthlessly practical. They didn't train in fancy moves or flashy techniques. They learned what worked, and they learned it through brutal trial and error. Their fighting systems were so effective that modern military units and martial arts practitioners still study medieval combat manuals today, recognizing their efficiency and deadly practicality. Compare that to today, where most guys think self-defense means having a security system and living in a good neighborhood. We've outsourced our personal security so completely that basic self-defense skills have become specialized knowledge instead of common sense. The medieval approach to conflict wasn't just about fighting, it was about awareness. They understood that the best defense was avoiding trouble in the first place. But when trouble came, they didn't have the luxury of waiting for someone else to handle it. There was no calling 911, no security cameras, no panic buttons, just you, your neighbors, and whatever weapons you had on hand. Forget everything you know about personal space and me time. Medieval life was a masterclass in community interdependence. Here's something mind-blowing. Medieval villages had a social support system so effective that homelessness was practically non-existent. When someone's house burned down, the entire community would rebuild it, usually within days. You don't learn this in history classes, out there, but this level of radical mutual obligation was the bedrock of their society. The medieval man wasn't just responsible for himself and his immediate family. He was part of a complex, living web of mutual obligations. Your neighbor's problem wasn't their problem alone. It was your problem too. Their harvest failed? You shared yours. Their barn needed raising. Everyone showed up, not because they were saints, but because next time it could be you needing help. This wasn't charity, it was a fundamental, unwritten contract of survival. Here's the kicker about medieval community life. They had something we've almost completely lost: real social consequences. You couldn't just ghost your responsibilities and move to another city. Your reputation was your currency, and everyone knew exactly what kind of person you were. Medieval records show that this social pressure was more effective at maintaining order than any law enforcement. Compare that to today, where we've got thousands of social media friends, but barely know our next-door neighbors. We've created a world where it's possible to be completely isolated while being constantly connected. Medieval folk would find our version of community absolutely bizarre. All surface, no substance. But perhaps the most striking difference was in how they viewed individual success. In medieval times, personal achievement meant nothing if it didn't benefit your community. A skilled craftsman wasn't just making products, he was training the next generation, contributing to community projects, and maintaining crucial knowledge for everyone's survival. His reputation wasn't for personal fame, but for his reliability and value to the collective. In a world where every man was a warrior and every woman a pillar of the household, individual prowess was only as valuable as the support system it helped build. So would a modern man survive in medieval times? The hard truth is that most of us wouldn't make it past the first month. And it's not just about the physical challenges, it's about a completely different mindset that we've lost. Medieval people had something we've traded away for comfort and convenience. They were complete human beings, capable of handling almost any situation life threw at them, a living embodiment of versatility and raw capability. Think about everything we've covered. The physical demands that would break most gym enthusiasts, the survival skills that went far beyond Bear Grylls-style TV shows, the mental toughness that didn't need therapy apps or motivational podcasts, the community bonds that made social media look like a pale, flimsy imitation of real human connection. The medieval man was like a master craftsman's multi-tool, capable of building, creating, and enduring in a myriad of ways. The modern man, by contrast, has become a collection of highly specialized but utterly dependent, single-purpose gadgets. We are physically weaker, mentally softer, and socially more isolated than our ancestors ever were. But here's the quiet, chilling reality behind this entire thought experiment. Medieval people weren't superhuman. They were just humans operating at their full potential, a potential that most of us haven't even had to glimpse in generations. The average medieval peasant had more practical skills than a modern survival expert, more physical capability than a gym rat, and more mental resilience than a motivational speaker. And the most damning evidence? They could lose everything, their crops, their home, their entire village, and rebuild from scratch. Most of us can barely handle a power outage or a broken smartphone. So, as we arrive at our final verdict, it's clear that this isn't a story about one era being better than another. It's about a quiet, profound loss. The medieval people weren't superhuman. They were just humans operating at their full, uncompromised potential. They were the living embodiment of competence. The average medieval peasant possessed more practical skills than a modern survival expert, more physical capability than a gym rat, and more mental resilience than a motivational speaker. We have engineered comfort so completely into our lives that we have, in a sense, engineered away our own capabilities. We have traded the grit of the earth for the smooth glass of a screen, the strength of our own hands for the power of a machine. And perhaps the most damning evidence of this great trade-off is this. They could lose everything, their crops, their home, their entire village, and rebuild from scratch. Most of us can barely handle a power outage or a broken smartphone. The modern man, for all his technological marvels, is a paradox. More connected, and yet more isolated. More comfortable, and yet more fragile. And that is a truth you don't learn in history classes.